Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook, so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one-size-fits-all protocols, just real answers, deep-rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to our show. And good afternoon or morning where you're at, Amber.
Good morning, or yes, it's morning here. Good morning. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
Yes, and I'm excited for our conversation. And I know that Amber has so much to offer, but she is a serial entrepreneur, the owner of the Queen Chapter, the Golden Leadership Institute, and also a 5-time international best-selling author. And her work is really devoted to helping all entrepreneurs, but particularly those women over 50 trying to reclaim their power, their purpose, and their overall wellness. So, Amber, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit more on really who Amber is, but also how you got started in all this kind of work.
Well, I've always known, actually, my personal development journey started when I was 9 years old, when I did some, transformational courses, and really started on the journey of always looking at who I am and what I'm here for. And I really got in touch with, over the course of my working on myself, that all that really matters in the world is making a difference for other people. You get out of your head, you get out of your own stuff when you focus on leaving the world better than you found it. So at every stage of life, I have looked for opportunities to do that. Your first order of business really is to work on yourself. Yeah. And then once you can get some kind of mastery around mastering your own emotions and your own stuff, then working on really putting it out there to help others. So that's what I did when I was younger, and I was a young mom and needed a place for my kids that was a good fit school. I decided to start my own school. Which blossomed over time. I didn't expect this, but and it's funny because as a serial entrepreneur, I'm like, doesn't everybody do that? Well, I guess not. I've learned that that's not not really how it works. But and I've been in a variety of industries. I wasn't an educator. I'd worked in television before that. My degree was in interior design, and I worked through college in restaurants, all kinds of different stuff. But I decided, to do that because I just wanted a certain style of education. The take a test and memorize and take a test wasn't going to work for my daughter because she was like me, and I had struggled in school, and I didn't want that for her, my oldest. And so when I looked around, I didn't see what I wanted. So I decided to create my own. And that journey really taught me so much in life about people and growth and systems and how to be a CEO. And so when I left after 15 years, we had 8,000 students in 4 states with 700 staff. And it was beautiful because I, like I said, what matters the most to me is making a difference. And I estimate, we changed with the parents and the kids that came through every year, probably like 400,000 lives, the ripple effect. And so that was beautiful. But then when it came to life changes again, other things changed, Mm-hmm. And so during COVID, actually, I went through 4 of the 5 Ds. So the 5 Ds are death, divorce, disease, disaster, and default. And I went through 4 of those all at once during COVID. My ex-husband asked me for a divorce after 25 years together in 2020. And then I realized, because my financial reality changed, that I needed to go leave nonprofit and go work in for-profit. And so I searched for meaning again. And financial stability, which I realized, I used to say money doesn't make you happy, and I still don't think it does, but it can make you miserable if you don't have it, if you don't have resources. Mm-hmm. So that is the foundation for doing all the other things. So I kind of searched my soul in this phase of life and thought, well, what's my skill set? What does the world want to pay me for? And what brings me joy? And what brings me joy is lifting up other people who are going through what I'm going through. So back in the day, it was moms looking for something creative and entrepreneurial for their young kids. And now it's really shifted to helping women over 50 do the same, because that's what happened to me in my 50s. I needed to shift and reorganize. And I worked for a while running a real estate syndication company. So I learned a lot about investing. And so then I decided that this phase of life, I call it the queen chapter. When you get, and it's I say it's women over 50, but it's more like when you've been through menopause, and when your kids are grown and you're kind of looking around like I am, saying, I'm single. I can do whatever I want to do, and I can change my mind on a dime without having to factor in other people. And so that gives me freedom to invent. And you're also kind of staring at the rest of life saying, there's, we don't have unlimited time. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. So what do I want to do now with my life to make it meaningful? And of course, financial resources are a part of that, but you can have that Venn diagram of all of those things. And so I want to do that for myself, and I am working with women to do that. Like, how do you make this queen chapter, this phase of life, count and matter? How do you want to be remembered,
Yeah, and I think one thing that you also, do is, you mentioned it briefly, is tying all of these things together. When women enter menopause, a lot of times, financial things can shift. Their health certainly shifts.
Yeah.
Maybe they've never been taught about finances before because they've had a partner or something else. Maybe they've never taught about identity because they've always been tied it to their worth with their career or their, kids. And I think it's what you do is kind of encompass all of these things, right? It's like this, business, the financial, the wellness, the identity part, and all these, the self-development work and all these things, instead of just one aspect. And I feel like, especially with women, over this 50 or menopausal age, there's a feeling of being almost lost, right? It's like,
Yeah. It's a little untethered sometimes,
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, right? It's like a re-identify. It's a very I feel
Yes, I have found it to be very exciting, because it's all possibility. Anything's possible when you're redesigning,
Mhm. Now, I'm curious, what were some of the biggest hurdles that you kind of faced entering into this Queen chapter that kind of also helped you develop kind of the programs and the techniques that you utilize with clients?
I mean, well, the physical is a real thing. You have to get a handle on your vitality and your routine. And it is easier now. Like, I work out at 6 a.m. every morning and get up at 5. That was harder when I had young kids, because even if I wanted to go, if like my now ex-husband was gone, I couldn't leave the kids home to go work out. So those things really need to be a piece of it, and looking at your life holistically. Like, how do you want to interact with your family? Maybe you have grandchildren. Maybe you're taking care of older parents. Like, how do you structure that part of your life so that it's meaningful and that you have the energy? So, like I was saying about finances, that's a real thing. Like, you really need to have financial stability, and I would even argue abundance to thrive. And then you also need to have abundance in your physical well-being. So those are the foundation. So that, I would say, is huge. Start there, and then I really had to look at, for me and my tools, like, what brings me joy, what gives me meaning, and then how do I monetize that? And there's ways to do that with everything, and then also, I started reading The Psychology of Money too, and I think that that's important, because a lot of us, while we have baggage around our, upbringing, we also have baggage around our physical health, right? Like, a lot of people struggle there, me included. And then most of us have some baggage around money too. And so, like, looking at, like, where is it that you need to really look introspectively so that you are getting past limiting beliefs, because I worked in nonprofit for a long time, and I was thriving, and I actually financially did a very good job of stabilizing that company. But I am having to look at myself in financial abundance now. Like, yes, that is a good thing, because I can help a lot of other people when I when I make that happen for myself, So in not limiting, not getting stuck in my limiting beliefs. So I've had to do a lot of work on that, and I'm doing great now because I am moving forward and making stuff happen. And I want to work with women, like you said. A lot of women are hands off with the money, their family, and the truth is 90% of women will wind up taking on the family finances at some point. So either you're going to figure it out proactively, or it's going to be forced upon you in a rush. And one of the things I write in, do I have my book here? Yeah. This is one of my books, but, and then I have, that's Unstoppable After 50, but but I have another book, Wealth Wise Women, that, I write in there, and it's a compilation of a bunch of different women who talk about their journey in wealth building, and we realized that there is a lot of work to be done to support women in building that financial literacy, and I would say wealth literacy, really, because you just can't give back to others unless you're taken care of in that way. So it's really important.
Yeah, I think changing the name for financial stability, especially I think over, this, I'll just say over the age of 50, um, because you don't have as much, I don't want to say time, as somebody who like can kind of
Ah,
mess around, just kind of wait it out in their 20s and 30s. It's like you really have to, I feel as if be more strategic,
mm-hmm.
and there's very different strategies, um,
Yeah,
at that age versus, again, if you're in your 20s, 30s, kind of, playing around.
yeah.
And um, and so that's obviously not my specialty, um, but on the flip side of that, you mentioned the wellness aspect too. And it's like, if you don't feel good, you're not going to want to learn all these things. You have the
Exactly.
energy to learn those things too. So I like that you mentioned kind of those hand in hand. But I'd be curious, besides a limiting belief on, our scarcity mindset is probably a big one too. Like, what are the
Mm.
biggest kind of hurdles around, you know, money do you find that women are, constantly being bombarded with?
I mean, I think that it's lack of experience and not knowing where to get the experience. That's why we wrote that book, Wealth Wise Women, because most of that world is handled by men. Like that's a man's world, the finance side. So it can be scary, although it's growing with women. It can be very scary to ask questions because you don't want to feel stupid, and you've always, So safe spaces. Where that have a lot of emotional safety, where you can ask questions that might feel dumb or unsafe to ask in another setting, is really, really important. And that again is why I decided to form the Queen chapter, because a sisterhood of women who and we work with people in all stages. I call the Duchess phase the one right before the Queen phase, and the Princess phase before that, and the Maiden phase when you're young. But the having that safe space to ask those questions really about anything, because money's a big one. That's a foundational one. Health and vitality is a big one. And so there's in fact, I've had some interesting conversations recently with women who are talking about some of these things that happen during menopause. They're like, how come no one told me? Like, there's not a safe space for that. And it needs to be, like, I always think of the Oprah show. Oprah's one of my heroes. She did everything from celebrities to like, how do you fit a good bra to, her book club to therapists, and like all of those different parts of life are important, and to have a safe place to explore those and wonder what's coming, talk about what you're going through. That to me is one of the biggest hurdles, is finding that place that you can feel, that you can ask. Because a lot of times it's a side question, it's not, and people don't want to ask in a group. It's like, oh, let me ask this question on the side at lunch. Is this happening to you too? That calibration is really helpful. So you feel not alone, you feel, and then you feel not alone. And then when you get to the next phase, it's like, okay, now I know who I can go to for the next thing. Or I might need to find somebody new. And there's having a community of people where, okay, I know that person is a little bit ahead of me on this piece. Let me ask them that question now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's literally been studies that have coming out about how to mitigate some of the side effects of menopause. And one of the things, yeah, sure, you can talk about hormone replacement, you can talk about nutrition, but the thing that always shocks me a little bit on all of these is community is a big
Yeah.
thing. And I don't say shock as in it doesn't surprise me, but like there's more conversation around, how important that emotional aspect is too, and community is with going through these new phases and chapters. Because you're right. I mean, most people are like, going through something they don't want to ask. They feel
Yeah.
alone, don't feel
Yeah.
seen, heard, especially by maybe who they think will hear them or see them, like their doctors, it's like, you just kind of feel like, oh, you're kind of screwed. Get
Yeah.
back in this next phase.
Oh my gosh, that happened to me when I was going through menopause. And I think part of it contributed to the end of my marriage because of what was going on physically with me. And so I went to 4 doctors saying, please help me. Please, please help me. And they were like, do Kegels. That was it. Do Kegels. Like I got so little support. And
Yeah.
then it turned out later. So I was in that phase where, you know, HRT was still completely banned almost everywhere, so I couldn't get that at the time. I am on it now, but and there was so little knowledge about menopause, and since then it's broken through, and there's a lot of conversation around menopause in the medical community. But at that time, almost zip, and so then ultimately, then later when when I got divorced and things happened, and I started seeking again. I wound up having 2 surgeries that were recommended that were life changing to me, bladder surgeries, and if I had done that a few years before, it would have really made a difference for me. So finding the right doctor who had the right information, and then also by that time, when I was going through my surgeries, the new research had come out about HRT and that it was safer than I had originally thought. And so then I got on that too, and that was life changing as well. And I know that's not your thing, but it's an important piece for people to seek out experts on that, because it's really, really was made a big difference for me.
Oh, and for the record, I'm a huge fan of HRT and BHRT for
Yeah.
the right person, right?
Yeah.
You can't also rely and think that that's going to be the only thing. You have to do the other work.
No, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
a big component, because a lot of people think, especially like being in the functional health world, they're like, oh, you're going to be a gut set. No, girl. I mean, like there's only so much hormone balancing you can do when everything's dropping. You need
Right.
support, like when you're in this,
Yeah.
30s, there's a lot more wiggle room to work with that stuff, but it can absolutely be life changing. But again, having the right doctor that also can screen you, put you on the right dosing, and listening to your body to know that, like, hey, something's maybe not right.
Hmm.
This is not just menopause. Even if you're on HRT, going in and getting that assessed too, and having the right person that can do labs, that can look at this and not just say, oh, okay, we'll just change the dosing. But how
Hmm.
do you know? You
Hmm.
haven't run anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
and again, doing the inner work too to maximize, how you feel, especially on it too. So, yeah, it's, I don't personally medically, I can't give that, but I partner with a medical clinic that does our clients' HRTs, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful collaboration. Just getting your body a little more stable and then going on that, and it's
Yeah.
good.
Well, like you said, it's one piece of the puzzle, and for me too, like I did the surgery and I did that. And then I've gotten my health. I mean, I lost 50 pounds when I got divorced. That made a huge, huge difference in keeping up my exercise, completely changing my exercise routine. And with my newfound freedom, I'm able to do more of that. So, and then also, gosh, what a breakthrough being single. Like I started working out early in the morning, which I had done like 20 years ago. And one day I was going through a difficult breakup, and I woke up at like 5 a.m. all the time, anyways. And now all of a sudden I'm alone. Like before, I would like try to keep sleeping, and I would like
Yeah.
snuggle and do that kind of thing. And so now all of a sudden I'm alone. I'm grieving. And I thought at like 5:30 in the morning one day, I just woke up and said, I'm going to the gym. And I joined a class halfway through, and I thought, this is amazing. And then, and I just found that I just kept doing it, and now that's my routine. And it does two things. I play tennis in the morning too, and there's like a lot of science around how getting out in the sun in the morning is really good for you too. And that I have found is great. So even when I don't go to the gym in the morning and get out in the sun, I go out to the sun. And this is a new habit I just started. I look at the sun and I say, I love my life, whether I'm feeling it or not. Half the time I'm not feeling it, but it changes my chemistry because and the truth is, there's things that I want to fix, things that I'm not happy about, but there are an awful lot of people that would be really, really happy to have the life I have, even though to me, there's all these holes I need to focus on. And that's a big, big thing. I need to focus on what I'm grateful for.
100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I think, when you're in any chapter, but particularly this queen chapter, when things are changing and it can almost feel, especially if you're, more of this type A person, that things are out of control.
Yeah.
And you want to tighten that grip. And, you don't recognize your body, you don't recognize your life, and all of those are, again, an invitation to look at some other things deeper. It's not necessarily a bad thing, you know what I mean? But we view it as that. It's like you wake up, you look at the mirror, you start talking bad about yourself. You have so many things you don't feel right, and it's all this negativity piles up on our body, and our body keeps that score, and so simple things like that, like, yes, get out in the sun, circadian rhythm, chef's kiss, yes. But also, how do you speak to yourself? How do you set up for the day? That matters just as much as eating your healthy food and getting out and balancing your circadian rhythm, right? It's like emotions and, our beliefs. So I'm glad you tapped on that too.
Yeah, I got a coach when I started building this, and she watching me especially, and I think this is true for a lot of people in this chapter, is energy management is so important. And that's all the forms of energy, right? It's the mental, it's the physical, all of those pieces can and should be managed. And strategies to manage that, like you asked about tools earlier, I'd say that's a big one, is strategies to manage your energy when things are tough, because you need to keep going. And I mean, we've done that, especially if we've been mothers, like you learn how to do that, but it's a little different in this phase. And, every phase has its own unique challenges. And so those special challenges here are an invitation and an opportunity to invent. And as we said at the beginning, like that to me is the most fun part, because anything's possible. Inventing, building, looking out at like, what am I going to do now? Such a fun time. It can be so exhilarating. And then when you declare it, it gets scary for a minute, and then you start hitting the road bumps and the breakdowns, and working through those that's where the support's needed,
Absolutely. Break down to break through. And, a lot of people get scared on the first, and without the support, never get to the other side. So, well, I love that. Is there any kind of last words of advice if maybe, some women are wanting to really optimize this new chapter of their life? I know we talked about a lot of different things, but any last words of advice if somebody is kind of seeking this next up level?
Well, I'd say you don't have a lot of time. You think that you do, but it gets much more real. Our mortality is much more real at this stage. But you do have some time. So make it count, and really think about when you're gone, what do you want people to say about you? Like, think about that. What is meaningful to you, and what are the steps to get there? That would be my most important message.
Yeah, I think that's a big heavy hitter for people to sit on.
Yeah. Important though,
100%. Go and journal on that today, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and on that note, I do have a life audit custom GPT tool that I would love to give to your listeners. It walks you through the steps of really just evaluating your life. I created it. It was inspired when me going through what I went through, and then I recommend regularly revisiting. Because you kind of look at what's working, what's not working. But it's a fun little tool that I created, and I'd love to send it out.
Oh yeah, awesome. And I will put that in the show notes, but where else can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about what you do?
They can go to queenchapter.com and read all about what it is to be a queen. And I have a book that I wrote. It by the time this airs, should have just been released, called Queen Chapter.
Oh, yay.
So on Amazon, you can buy Queen Chapter by Amber Golden.
Love that. Love that. Well, thank you for spending the time here, and spending some afternoon chatting with me. Thank you, listeners, for being here. If you guys found this helpful, would love for you to shoot Amber a DM, shoot me a DM. We'd love to hear feedback on, what kind of hit home for you. But otherwise, we will catch you guys on the next show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.